about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements. Yeah, I've lost my way, but I hear tell about a heaven in Alberta, where they've got all hell for basements.
All right. Hi, everyone. Frankie here. New West Reset. Hello. Welcome back. Thank you very, very much for shooting in, joining a guy here for another live stream. Where we at? New West Reset Live, episode 34. Episode 34. Welcome. Friday, October 6th, 6 p.m. here, Mountain Time, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And yeah, Guy, appreciate you kicking off your weekend with yours truly here. It's Friday, don't you know? Friday. So just kind of waiting for everybody to shoot in. If you're here, let me know in the chat. Say hello, say howdy. Let me know where you're coming from, where you're shooting in from. In the meantime, 18 degrees Celsius right now. It went up to 20 Celsius today, which isn't bad for October 6th. Not too shabby at all, actually. It was like 72, 73-ish Fahrenheit, at about, I don't know, 3 o'clock today, through 2, 3 in the afternoon. It was nice. I was outside, on walkabout with a pair of shorts on. A fellow threw on his old culottes and went for, a little stroll. So it was nice. It was nice. Anyway, who we got here? Well, my buddy Vincent. Vincent's here. He says that the New West Reset theme song starts playing in my head every Friday around noon or so. That's not distracting while you're doing manual labor. Got a sledgehammer in your hand or something. You don't want to drop it on your toe. But hey, that's thank you very much. Much obliged. Much obliged. Where'd that come from? Sound like an old gold panner, an old 49er. Much obliged. Yeah, that's right. I'm just an old prospector with my mule, number 7. I don't know what the hell's going on. Anyway, Jamin Jansen's welcome. Old World Mi'kmaq. Hello. Awakening Soldier. I'll be better off examining current reset in motion. Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. Yeah, you got to be well, I think a lot of us, maybe I'm generalizing a bit here, maybe, I don't know, but I think a lot of people in our line of thinking, people that are sort of, I don't know, looking into false narratives in our history and so on. might be preppers. I mean, that's even that word's got negative connotations, and it shouldn't. Nothing wrong with being prepared. You were a Boy Scout, weren't you? I was. This guy. That's right. I was a Boy Scout. I was a Cub Scout before that. Go through the whole Lord Baden-Powell indoctrination system. But that aside, it teaches you some good life lessons, especially back in the day when I was a kid in the 70s, right? It's not like it is today with everybody's got one of these things in their face all the time. Anyway, when you drive, you got a spare tire in the trunk of your car. So, you might want to just put away some of the essentials and have a couple of get out of Dodge plans in case poop hits the rotary cooling device. You see what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not the guy to give any kind of advice about the crazy stuff going on there right now. I'm just a Canadian fella up here, just trying to bring the goofy narrative of Canada's past up into the forefront here on some of what we do. But yes, sage advice indeed. Sage advice. Oh, really? An Airdrie? Wow. Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah, that's just a little, it's as we say around here, it's just up the road a ways. Hey, buddy, you know where Airdrie is? Oh, for sure, eh? Just up the road a ways there, pal. So, yeah. Toidle is here. Hello. Our old friend Toidle. Hidden in plain sight. This guy's over in Holland, by the way. Our friend Hidden in Plain Sight, who has a great channel also, by the way. He sets his alarm for the show. Sets his alarm for New West Reset. Can you believe that? That's amazing. Tip of the hat to you, sir. Tip of the hat. Hello, Kathy. Kathy Childers from Kentucky. The bluegrass state of Kentucky. Tartarian prog rockers in the box. Hello. Good to see you. Thank you to all of you once again for joining me here, kicking off your weekend. Frankie, New West Reset, episode 34 of the live show here every Friday. So for this episode, we're going to look at the Regina Cyclone of 1912. Kind of a reset, because I don't think that necessarily resets always had to have been some kind of huge realm-wide event that happened all within a very short time period. I think much like today, there's crappy stuff that happens, whether natural or man-made. Powers who should not be will often jump on the opportunity to roll out next levels of their agenda or whatever. I don't know, man. I don't know what the interdimensional shape-shifting, time-traveling, chameleon alien overlords are going to be trying to do or whatever the hell's going on out there. I don't know. I mean, I jest, but seriously, there's some serious shit that can go down. And this can be the opportunity for those that are pulling the strings to just kick things up a gear into the next level of their phase of whatever the hell they're trying to do to us and maintain, right? So I don't think it necessarily had to be distant stuff like in the 1600s or what we were told in our present timeline was the 1600s or the 1850-ish dates thrown around a lot. Sure, there's lots of stuff that you can see from the research in and around that time frame and earlier, but I think also more recently, if it's small localized stuff that's gone down. We looked at examples here on the show before. The year 1700 was an MF for people in what is now the Pacific Northwest of the United States. and what is now known as British Columbia and southwestern Alberta here in Canada. That sort of whole region of Washington, Idaho, Montana, southern Alberta, and sort of almost all of British Columbia, with the tsunami and the volcanic eruption that happened. And at certain points, things happen. And there was this terrible natural disaster in 1912 in Regina, Saskatchewan, up here in Canada. Once again, our favorite province name here on the channel to say. There's nothing more fun than saying Saskatchewan. Come on now. But this thing was a bugger for everybody out there in Regina, the capital city of Saskatchewan. Beautiful city, by the way. A fellow's been there a couple times. Old world hamster wheel cranes. Eric in the box. How's she going there, bud? Eh? Good to see you. Good to see you. Freya's here. Hello. Freya recently had a chat with our friend Chris, Old World Exploration, and that's on his channel. Go and check that out. A recent upload of his. The Freya channel and the Old World Exploration channel. Two heads are better than one. So yeah, this thing was an MF. This thing was a real destructive force. In fact, it was the most destructive tornado in Canadian history up until this day. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Tornadoes up in Canada? I thought there was all just Eskimos and igloos up there, and moose and trees and snow and ice and whatnot. Sure, northern parts for a couple of months, yeah. But we get tornadoes here in the prairies, especially. But it can happen pretty much anywhere. The hell, there's even been tornadoes in Ontario, which seems crazy even to me. But here in Alberta, yeah. Saskatchewan, oh yeah. Manitoba, for sure there, bud. And this cyclone or tornado was pretty destructive. So we're going to have a look at that. And again, it happened in 1912. So the usual, we'll look at the official narrative with the Wikipedia. Then the guy's got some photos to share with you. Midway through the show, as per always, give you a sneak peek at your midweek coming up this coming Wednesday. And then I don't know, maybe we'll chit chat a little bit. Before that, if you haven't already, consider giving the guy the thumbs up, like the stream, or thumbs down if you want. Sure, I don't know. I'm not gonna. What do you think? I'm gonna come to your house and egg your house and toilet paper your house on Halloween? If you don't, it's fine. It's okay. Maybe you just stumbled on this guy yammering here with all this junk in the background, talking about Regina, Saskatchewan, and you're like, this seems interesting. Maybe consider subscribing to a guy, I put up a new boots on the ground video every Sunday. Every Wednesday for your midweek, I do a vintage footage video set to music of old film footage from Victorian era or the Edwardian era, basically up until the World War II-ish, sometimes in the 1950s. I try not to get too recent with it, like the old stuff. And then, of course, much like, Toot Sweet right now, every Friday, live, New West Reset live. And with that said, we're episode 34 here, talking about Regina Cyclone. Old World, Michigan. Howdy, howdy. Welcome. Yeah, Friday. You got to get Frankie Fingers in there on Friday. Friday with Frankie Fingers. Or something. It's just, it's a fun Friday with Frankie Fingers. So now you know what I'm talking about with the whole New West Reset thing. No.
What?
No.
What I said about Frankie Fingers. That Frankie Fingers and New West Reset are the same.
Wait, what?
Oh yeah, she don't stand no cheating. She don't stand none of that.
There you go. Just clowning around a little bit. Have a little fun. Have a little fun at you here with Frankie Fingers. So we're going to take a look at some photographs. Aye? Say no more. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. Photographs. If you have not been around the channel before, a guy tends to focus on the Canadian stuff, as mentioned earlier in the stream. Like to keep Canada top of mind. Don't forget about us up here, eh? I know we kind of go dormant for about 5 months up here there, bud, eh? But, you know, in the winter times there, all you get from us is hockey and maple syrup around there, you know, but the rest of the time we're digging out old buildings and, you know, viaducting stuff, and we got, you know, pavement lights and old half-buried windows and domes upon domes and all kinds of crazy stuff up here. In Regina, out in the middle of the prairies, is no exception. I'm gonna start it off here by just showing you where we are on the goggle maps. Regina, Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan. It's just so fun. God bless Saskatchewan. It's like I said, I've been to actually Moose Jaw. I've been to. That's my favorite city in my name, in my favorite province name. Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. Like, come on. Is there anything more fun to say than that? Except for maybe Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. But now you're getting into tongue twister territory. So here's Saskatchewan. Now we've talked about Manitoba and Alberta, where I am, Saskatchewan. These are known as the prairies, you know, the breadbasket of Canada. And Regina, the capital city, is kind of in the southern part, sort of southeastern-ish, right here. Regina, Saskatchewan. And basically, once again, right on the Trans-Canada Highway, although there's a number of ring roads to go around, but this number one, the old number one, Trans-Canada Highway, it basically goes from east to west, coast to coast. So that's what we're looking at. Regina, Saskatchewan. What was that? So cool. What was what? What was what? The Frankie Fingers? So what you're saying is Frankie Fingers is New West Reset?
Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. I don't understand. Okay, I've been trying to tell you. Frankie Fingers is New West Reset. New West Reset is Frankie Fingers.
So it's the same guy.
Yes, it's the same guy, Mutt. What do you think? I've been trying to tell you. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Frankie Fingers, New West Reset. Okay?
All right, I got it. Jeez. All right, let's quit messing around here. Get the show on the road there, bud. You know? Show. Yeah, that's right. Good vibes there, right, bud? Oh, thank you. Yeah, Frankie Fingers is a good fella. Absolutely. Yes, it's Regina, not Regina. Well, yeah, Regina, right? Got it. I mean, what a beaut. What a beaut this place is. I mean, come on. Let's make this a little, mess around the size here. Just a wee. These photos are early 20s. At least this one is. But I mean, look at this. Look at this nonsense over here. For a prairie town of, well, let's say 1920. So you're looking at, well, let's you know, the guy's getting ahead of himself. Maybe let's look at the Wikipedia first and foremost, maybe. That might give us an idea of what we're talking about here. You know. Just, I'm all getting all excited. I'm caught up in a whirlwind, a cyclone of excitement and anticipation of getting to this thing because it's wacky. Well, it's not wacky. It was pretty devastating. But it's wacky in the sense that it's perfect opportunity for, as mentioned, the puppeteers. You know, let's get down here. There we go. Now we're cooking with propane, butane. Welcome, welcome. Critical. Our new friend Critical. Welcome. So Regina, Saskatchewan, eh, there, bot? Regina is the capital of the Canadian province of Saskatchewan. The city is the second largest in the province after Saskatoon. It's a commercial center for southern Saskatchewan. It's got about 2,250 people. 250,000 people. Excuse me. Yeah, it was formerly in the Northwest Territories, much like Alberta was, or parts of Alberta were. Southern Alberta, where I am, was formerly part of the Louisiana Territory in Louisiana prior to Louisiana Purchase. And after that, I was Southern Alberta and parts of Southern British Columbia, I think, were part of the Oregon Territories. This is after, you know, old maps were after the part, you know, earlier old world maps, basically from a little west of Winnipeg, Manitoba onward, it just says parts unknown on old maps when it comes to Canada. Just we don't even know what's over there. It's fine. You know. Unlike other also there was a planned city. In the Canadian West, it's treeless flat plain. Regina has few topographical features other than a small spring runoff, Wascana Creek. Early planners took advantage of such opportunity by damming the creek to create a decorative lake to the south of the central business district and all kinds of stuff like that there. All right. Kind of the usual stuff, you know, a bunch of early pioneers, and they established early seat of government there in the 1880s. I'm finding a lot of these Wikipedia pages in recent years too. Not even, well, maybe in the last year or two at the most. So it's getting harder and harder to find populations. When you're looking for populations, like what was the population in, I don't know, 1900. You know, it doesn't like to tell a guy all the time, necessarily. But anyway, we'll quit messing around with that. So basically, the idea with the founding of it is found in the spring, because there's really not much. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be completely honest with you. Again, you know, no, you're talking to a guy who's been to Regina and Moose Jaw and Saskatoon a number of times in my life. It's just the next province over to the east of a guy. So, you know, I've been there in business. I've been there for pleasure or to visit and eat camping trips, fishing trips, all that kind of stuff. But it is very flat. I mean, it's the prairies, it's farmland, it's wheat and barley and corn and alfalfa and canola and, all that, their stuff. And then there's oil as well, right? So you get the oil rigs and the oil pumps. Beep, beep, beep. But to be honest, it is very flat and not much going on. So to take advantage of that spring, and then it just being basically not much happening until the railroad basically comes through there in the mid 1880s. I believe it was 1885, 1886. Give or take a year or two. I'm going from memory. But then you look at some of the old photos, and we'll get back to those. You can see that, okay, so from a tiny spring to a small lake to, to all of a sudden, you've got these beautiful old world, dare I say, buildings, right? And it's like, okay, well, hold on a second there, bub. There's something that ain't jiving for a guy here with. And all it does is beggar the question. That's all we can do is just question. I'm not suggesting that this cyclone or tornado didn't happen. In fact, I know it happened. There's proof that it happened. But what I'm saying is that it doesn't have to be something that's in our near ancient past, 150, 200, 300 years ago. It doesn't have to be some realm-wide reset. When I talk about resets, again, it could be little pockets, little things that have happened, stuff that's popped off, and they just jump on it and take advantage of it. I'm sorry, I'm just queuing up photographs here, and I'm having some issues. Excuse me here. Bear with the guy. I don't know what the heck's going on here. Aha. Now I see, said the blind man. With my super loud mouse clicking. Yeah, so yeah, you get stuff like this. Look at this thing. It's beautiful, right? Arched windows, and your coining looks very gingerbread. Looks like some kids would, I mean, these days you go to the Piggly Wiggly or wherever, and you can, the Safeways, go to the Walmarts and get yourself a little kit that's got all the pre-cut pieces of gingerbread that's barely edible. It ain't like Nana used to make, I'll put it to you that way. And, all the packets of icing, which is sugar mixed with liquid sugar. And then that liquid corn syrup and fructose, glucose stuff, because that's what you should give to little kids to eat. But anyway. But back in the day, this is something that kids would make. Looks like a damn gingerbread house. It's beautiful. Again, this is fairly later on. This is a good, 40 years into the founding of Regina. But, and this is a major thoroughfare too, keep that in mind. But wow, they've built it up quite a bit in 40 years, for a bunch of wheat farmers and putting up with tornadoes. Look at this. And another one here. Might even be the same building. I think that is the same building. Two different sized towers and two different sort of squishamids. One's got portal dormers in it. Maybe they're supposed to be a clock, used to be a clock. They're going to put in a clock there, maybe. I don't know. I mean, we've got 4 of them here on this thing, so it's lovely. Yeah, there. Okay. Clock. 4 clocks. It's not just the downtown core. Even in the distance here, you can see massive, big, huge buildings. Again, this is the 20s. So again, 40 years on of this, and roughly 25 years of the railroad being here. But I just don't, I mean, again, I'm grateful and I appreciate the visual beauty of something like this. As weird as it is with the entrances that you've got to go up, but then meanwhile there's access underneath, and then you've got these suspiciously low windows down here with this phony foundation to make it look like it's a big stone foundation. I mean, I've shown that on boots on the ground videos on my channel all over the city here in Calgary. But, you know, it just seems very, to use an overused phrase, over the top for, you know, this prairie town, or we were told is just this rinky-dink little town in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's got a full electric tram system. It's got these other huge buildings with all this beautiful coining and all of these keystones above the windows, massive arched entranceways and windows here. Built on the back of the wheat farmer, I guess. I mean, yeah, you know. Huh. You know, just what's Freya saying here? Yes, we just don't know. Which is why we research and talk amongst us. Yeah, exactly. We've all come with a piece of the puzzle. You know, I mean, I focus on boots on the ground. I do these live streams because I love sitting down for an hour or two with you good folks and shooting the breeze and bouncing these ideas off of each other. But that's kind of my wheelhouse. That's what I enjoy doing. And it's mind-blowing to me when I do videos, even if I know the building I'm going to go to. It's still mind-blowing to me in my own local city of seeing stuff like this that looks like it belongs, from what we're told from the official stories and the history and all that, looks like it belongs in Europe or somewhere in the UK. Maybe in Eurasia somewhere, you know, like, I mean, not, you know, Regina, Saskatchewan, you know, and then all these other big buggers here, right? It's just, you know, so yeah, that's my little puzzle piece that I have no idea where it goes. I got it in my hand and I'm bringing it to the table. And yeah, we all just kind of have our own little pieces and we're just trying to figure out what the Sam hell's going on around here. Yeah, yeah. There's a prospector voice guy again. I don't know where these people come from in my head. Yes, that's right, Tornado Alley. And we have what's known as Tornado Alley here in Alberta as well, which basically runs from just south of Edmonton, our capital city, sort of in a southeasterly direction past Calgary and into southern Alberta, in and around Lethbridge, Medicine Hat, that sort of area, the Badlands. It does look a little stumpy, this one, right? It looks a little stumpy. It almost looks like it should go down at least, because, I mean, if you look at the size of this window, for example, it looks like it should be maybe, by the perspective of this photo, another 2 feet. And then you allow for maybe another foot to clear the ground because it's Canada and this is the prairies. So you get a 2 to 3 feet of snow in the winter or more. And if you don't get it the hell out of there as fast as possible, it puts pressure on the side of the building and it melts and freezes and melts and freezes, and it starts infiltrating any minor cracks or defects in the masonry or the concrete or the stone or the brick or the block, whatever's used. And it expands and contracts again, and then these minor cracks become huge fissures. And then you get all kinds of water incursion and moisture damage and mold. And, I'll get mushrooms growing on the wall of his basement's what I'm saying. And then it's poison. You'll go cuckoo from the mold and all that. And get the nerve damage. You will get emotional damage as well as nerve damage. So all that said, it looks like it should be another, it should go down another 6 to 8 feet. And what is under here should be what they're trying to pass off as this. And this originally would have been another row of windows with maybe this center portion accented with arched windows or something all the way down or what have you. Same as here. Because I'll bet you dollars to good Canadian donuts, the height of the door under here that we can't see, unfortunately, is probably the same, exactly the same height as this window. But anyway, moving on here. Look at this, man. Beautiful. Of course, you got to have your World War I cenotaph memorial obelisk. This one looks like it's missing. It's been circumcised. It's missing the tip. The tip, just for a second, just the tip, just to see how it feels. Hello. Anyway, this is beautiful. This is Victoria Park, named after Queen Victoria, of course, or so they say, anyways. I mean, yes, some geomancy potentially going on here with the symbolism of the design, of the shape. But my eye's drawn to this beaut. Look at this beauty here. And this pretty good-sized church for, you know, again, out in the middle of bald-ass prairie, as we say. This, I believe, is it's either the courthouse or the customs house. But you can see, just back here, it's all built up pretty much right to this nice flat horizon. And this nice wide angle old shot here. But yeah, nice tree-lined streets and the whole bit. So a beautiful, beautiful city. You know, this one you'll have to excuse. It's kind of itty-bitty, so when I blow it up, it gets all pickolated. But I believe this is of course, the Carnegie Library. This, if I'm not mistaken, is I believe the courthouse. Old World. Hamster wheel crane saying most obelisks like that in the center of grass like that were with pathways, used to be grandstands that had tubes under them. Like tubes, you mean like tunnels or like a tube system, like the London Tube, like an underground? Some kind of either tunnel or transportation system. I've heard that, actually. I've heard that. Not these small little bandstands, but yeah, these huge grandstands, yeah. Usually octagonal, if not mistaken. This is, of course, is that same Victoria Park. This is pre-obelisk. So this is pre-World War I. And there used to be a fountain here, a statue in it. Again, I'm sorry. I can't. I mean, the closer I get, the worse it gets. I can't tell what that statue was. But it now has that obelisk thingamajig in it. There's another shot of this building. Okay, so there it is, City Hall. And that's the second City Hall. Because I think their first City Hall was a smaller City Hall. But by 1908, you know, you've got 20, maybe 30,000 people. So you need to build a gingerbread house, wedding cake looking, multi-spired and domed massive structure for, you know, and again, a lot of the people that live in the surrounding area, again, they're farmers, much like Calgary and other major cities in the prairies. They're farmers or ranchers. They don't live in the city. I mean, sure, there's businesses and there's industry going on at this point, commerce and all of that, but about 20% of what they're counting as Regina residents, live outside of the town limits. It just seems awfully fancy for, a mayor and a couple of aldermen, a couple of city councilmen, just to kind of sit around and hobnob and make up arbitrary bylaws and I don't know what the hell. Plan their next election? I don't know. I mean, it's a lovely, lovely structure, man. I mean, wow-wee. So again, it's either the courthouse or the customs house, forgive me, but it doesn't matter. I mean, all we're looking at is, why a little prairie town needs all this fancy stuff and, a Phoenician shell up here and then some kind of, what they'll tell us is a flagpole or a lightning rod. And I'm sure maybe in this photo it is by this point, but it probably replaces a bunch of tech. I have a feeling that in older photos, and it's very hard to find actually on the interwebs, but I think there was some fancier stuff going on this building that was removed when they sort of gave it its tart up. Because you can see on the underneath, you've got all these nodes. And again, you've got these, I don't know what they are. They look like wreaths or some kind of circular. I'm sorry, again, the picture's not the super best, but anyway. So this is just your normal school out in, this is where all the farm kids go. Nothing to see here, folks. Just a normal school. In the middle of the prairies. Tumbleweeds, cowboys, farmers, Indigenous First Nations. It's people in the oil industry. But you got to have a big castle-like school to send the kiddies off to, I guess. Complete with the big castle-like wooden door. That's it looks like they cut a rectangular or squared off door in here, which is weird. Door's too big for these little kids to swing open and shut every day to get their learning done. That's an impressive building for a little city. Actually, a town. Didn't become a city, I don't think, until the teens. And then the cyclone hit. And you could see why, when we look at the photos of the destruction here, why the powers who should not be would want to jump at the chance, jump on this opportunity. Much like all the great fires or floods or other disasters, recent or in the past, can't talk about the islands in the Pacific that are the part of the United States because YouTube doesn't like it. But anyway, flooding in New York City, so on and so forth. It's crazy, right? But it's our fault because we warm up the globe, even though none of us own factories that I'm aware of that pump poison into the air. But anyway, you can see with the destruction here, whether it's a small residential wooden, 2-story beautiful little wooden house, or whether it's a big, huge steel reinforced multi-level, I don't know, apartment, factory, I don't know what that is or was. But with the level of destruction, there's a grain elevator that got knocked ass over tea kettle. This is not in Winnipeg. This is in Regina. It's just, that's the name of the company that makes these grain elevators. And yeah, the tornado knocked it ass over tea kettle onto all these rail cars. Looks to me like some of these rail cars were flipped too. So this thing just bashed right off. Now, I know for a fact because, well, I don't know for a fact, but by the mainstream story, the Great Calgary Fire of 1886 in November, if I'm not mistaken, of 1886, they wanted to create fire breaks. You know, that old story of we're going to blast down or dynamite down these buildings in order to save the buildings. You know what I mean? Like we're going to destroy buildings to save buildings. It's right in the Wikipedia page for the Great Calgary Fire that the chief of the fire department said, "Oh, you know, let's knock down these buildings, stop the roaring fire that's going through the stone and brick and wooden buildings." Which is ridiculous, but you know, that's what they say that, you know, hey, we got to knock down these 6 buildings to save those other 6 buildings from burning. Like it burns down or it falls down because you blew it up. Like either way, dummies. But anyway, you could see how, whether it was a city fire or in this case, a tornado or a cyclone, how they could just make the damage worse and get rid of some of the buildings they want to get rid of. Now, this thing's not anything that's sort of a standout runway model, you know, exquisitely beautiful building or anything. It's just a nice old world building. Got some arched windows here and so on and so forth. You got some suspiciously low windows down here. Some that are already look boarded up, even though this supposedly was a big thriving business. I mean, they sold tents, tarps, flags, and horse blankets. So, you know, with all the farmers and everything, you know, this would have been a booming business. But you could see how if they wanted to make the damage worse, they could just dynamite it or whatever. There's the remnants of an old church, the old Methodist church. You know. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm not denying that there was a cyclone or a tornado in Regina, Saskatchewan in 1912. Not denying that at all. I'm just saying that it's an opportunity for a reset, for a localized reset. It's the opportunity to knock down or make worse the damage done naturally of some old world buildings that perhaps are hard for them to explain or are inconvenient, or an insurance scam by some of these bowler-hatted or top-hatted jackasses. You know. Exactly. Finally, I can get tents and horse blankets all in one place. Wowee. Oh man, that's great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that too. That too. You look at the Badlands of Alberta, for example, Drumheller, again, Medicine Hat, down in the Lethbridge area. Again, that is basically our Tornado Alley, the Badlands. And it looks cooked to hell, man. It looks cooked to hell. I've done live streams on that too. I think I called it Did Dews Destroy Drumheller? Because, you know, a guy likes alliteration. I'm a sucker for a tongue twister. Well, that's a good question. I've only been to New York City, I think once. Yeah, one. No, been to New York State a couple times. Like Plattsburgh and Vermont, or not Vermont, Plattsburgh and Willsboro, kind of in upstate New York, you know, right near Quebec, right? Been in New York City, I think it was only once, but I'm not that familiar with New York City. I mean, your guess is as good as mine, bud. Like on what the narrative is on that, right? Like it's Oh, my stuff's blowing up here. What's going on? Guy tries to keep it on the vibrating so it doesn't disturb the show, and the vibrating is so loud it still disturbs the show. My apologies. So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds. It seems there's all kinds of stuff that's going on lately, and it seems like it's more and more. But I think it's just really getting hyped up more and more. I mean, with stuff that happened in the aughts or in the teens of the last century, the 20s, the 30s. I mean, obviously, we didn't have the old goggle machine and the interwebs and all that crap. I mean, basically, what was their sensationalized stuff? It was basically the newspaper until radio came in, and then later television, of course. But I mean, it was coming at you from maybe a couple of angles, and that was it. Whereas today, I mean, you can't even say you're surrounded by it, and you can't get away from it, basically, because it's more than being surrounded. It's like you're immersed in it, right? But yeah, New York's got all kinds of crazy stuff going on, right? With tunnels and old parts of the city that are underneath still pretty old parts of the city. So who knows what they could be going on with that? Like what they could do to kick things off after the floods have subsided and they've done repairs. Who knows? Could be an excuse to such and such is now unstable. This is unstable. That's unstable. It could be an excuse to write off some of the tunnels that the people have been finding, like urban exploring people, like just going down and finding that sewers connect to tunnels, and these tunnels aren't in use, and they're super old. These brick tunnels, we see it all the time in New York and London and like all these older cities, right? Or what we're told are older cities. So it could help them to come up with a narrative to explain away some of that stuff. Don't fall down, man. Sorry, that's what you call dead air in showbiz. Sorry, my brother and I are roommates. He just got home. That's who was hit me up on my device, send me a text. Anyway, so I mean, yeah, they could use it to explain away. Like who knows, right? Oh, we got to knock down 18 buildings because they're structurally unsound now because the water damage, or like who knows, right? And then next thing you know, there go a bunch more old world buildings, and then they've got to dig new foundations to put new buildings in there that look like hell. So then they dig away all the old world infrastructure underneath, or old buildings underneath, and I mean, there's all these old cities in that part of the world, or again, we're told old cities in that part of the world or the realm, the U.S., right? I mean, they're all clustered together. I mean, they're super clustered. I mean, Canada's like that too. Montreal, Ottawa, Hamilton, Toronto. They're all super clustered together, right? And you've got like Buffalo and New York City and Philadelphia and Boston and Chicago and Detroit. I mean, they're all on the grander scale. They're just a stone's throw away, right? So I mean, if it's not one, it's another, and if it's not one thing, it's another. And I couldn't even begin to guess what these bozos like to try to do. Yeah, well, the one that the little angels, the little musical instruments the angels play. But I know what you mean. Yeah, I mean that's kind of not too many people have been talking about it as much recently as it was like maybe, I don't know, what, like 5 years ago, but it's starting to kind of come back up again, which maybe means that there's, there could be more stuff related to that that's going to go on. Who knows? I have no idea, man. Oh, you got that right there, bud. For sure, Quebec City has some. I mean, especially the old Quebec City, right? Parts of the old walled city. You know that. I mean, that's what it was. It was an old star city, right? And the Chateau Frontenac, I think, was the old citadel, sort of the castle behind the kingdom walls, for lack of a better comparison. You know, if we're talking about goofy stories and narratives, might as well talk fairy tales, right? And yeah, you're right. Old World Montreal for sure, too. The old port. That's where I was born. I was in Montreal. And still try to go back once in a blue moon. And as a kid, loved hanging out in the old port. And every time I go back, I do the touristy thing and go to the old city. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm a filthy smoker. I'm a filthy smoker. You know. Oh, absolutely. And if it's not more structure than it's infrastructure or ancient passageways or tunnel systems. And who knows what's under that? I mean, look at the stuff that Paul Cook's finding and has found over on Crete and over on wherever the hell he was, those crazy Mediterranean islands and stuff. Right? And look at stuff that Campbell, autodidactic, has found where, you know, an island appears to not just be what they would say is, well, it's a natural formation, right? It's a higher point on the ocean floor that boop pops up out of the, you know, the water line of the ocean, right? So boop, it's an island. It's an underwater mountain or really tall hill or whatever. But then you look all around it and it looks like it's made out of massive monolithic blocks, like massive ones. So, you know, in this little photo, you see these massive, that's all the way around. And it's in layers. And then there's like a star 40 sort of a retaining wall. And then that looks like it's filled in. And then you've got these old structures on top of that. And then sprinkled amongst that and on top of that is new buildings. And it's like, well, what is this, a freaking upside down pineapple cake? Like, how many layers does this thing have, man? Right? My buddy Vince put me on the spot here. He's asking me if I can play that old harmonica. I do play harmonica, but not this one. This was my granddaddy's old chromatic harmonica with the button on it. I can't play it because it's actually so old, it's kind of seized up. And I managed to get the action on the button working again, but pretty much all the reeds inside, they're like bamboo reeds that vibrate. That makes the sound. Sometimes they're copper or brass reeds as well, depending. But anyway, depending on the maker. But they're all seized up or broken. So, but I can play. But yeah, that thing's too old. I just like it because it's old. You know, every show a guy does here, he's always putting his old crap in the background. You know, yeah, well, I like old stuff. What can I say? Maybe I always have. Maybe that's part of what eventually drew a guy into this thing. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, and on the harmonica, Frankie, 5 fingers. Yeah, that's right. You got that's right. You got to have Frankie fingers on the harmonica.
So, Tommy, where have you been, huh? I've been watching New West Reset. Huh? Well, you know, it's New West Reset. It's this thing on YouTube. He goes around, he does his boots on the ground thing. They'll tell you.
Say you care.
All right. Let's see if folks in the chat have created a monster with that whole Frankie Fingers thing. I got to tell you, you've created a monster. Oh boy. It's fun. We like to goof around here so we don't go half nuts with anger with all the lies they tell us. Speaking of which, let's look at the Wikipedia for the official story here. And again, I'm not saying this didn't happen. But I do think that the opportunists seized upon it to roll out stuff, change stories, change, build dates on buildings, destroy buildings that they couldn't explain anymore because it wasn't a bunch of dumbass hick farmers. It was like, oh, these are people that are actually starting to figure out what's going on and ask questions. Can't have that now. So the Regina Cyclone, or Regina Tornado, of 1912 was a tornado that devastated the city of Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. On Sunday, June 30th, 1912, it remains the deadliest tornado in Canadian history, with a total of 28 fatalities and about 300 people injured. Sounds terrible to say, but I thought it would be much worse. But I guess, the population of the town not being too huge at that point, or the city, I should say. There's a lot of injuries, though. At 4:50 p.m. So you think it's like, that's rush hour, man. Even back in the horse and buggy and jalopy and electric street trolley days. Wouldn't that be rush hour? Green funnel clouds, okay, formed and touched down south of the city, tearing through the residential area between Wascana Lake and Victoria Avenue, and continuing through the downtown business district, rail yards, warehouse district, and northern residential area. The tornado formed 18 kilometers or 11 miles south of the city and continued for another roughly 8 miles or 12 clicks north before dissipating. It's approximately 150 meters or almost 500 feet wide. Tornado's wind velocity has been estimated at 400 clicks or 250 miles per hour. See, has been estimated. So it's present past tense, meaning that it's not had been. So they didn't estimate that speed back then. It's in recent times has been estimated. So they don't know how fast it was. I guess they have to assess or evaluate the damage and say, okay, well, it would have to take such and such based on previous data from previous cyclones or whatever. I don't know, but that's, 250 miles an hour, man. Wow. And almost 500 feet wide. That's pretty big. Thank you very much, Freya. Just got to get the babies to sleep. Maybe I'll be back. All right. Well, thanks for shooting in. It was good to see you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the foot, the paw, the hoof, the hoof. Well, I can't leave it there. It's a sin. Oh man. Well, you're not gonna get me to be playing the harmonica on here. Come on now, man. Not on a live, anyways. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll record my own new theme song, as opposed to the earworm now that drives you crazy every Friday from noon. Who knows? I'm not here to play harmonica. I'm here to make fun of the Wikipedia narrative here, or at least try to see what we could see anyway. Tornado hit Regina at approximately 5 on June 30th. Yeah, you said that already, man. What the? So repetitive. In just 20 minutes, it completely leveled a number of houses and caused other houses to explode as the pressure inside the structures rose when the tornado passed overhead. Never heard that before. Have you ever heard of that before? That the pressure increases so much inside a house that it explodes just from a sudden change in air pressure? Wouldn't just the force of the winds knock it over way before it would build up the pressure to explode it from the inside? I don't know. I'm not a physicist or whatever. I don't know. That just sounds weird. But anyway, okay. The affluent residential area to the south was substantially diminished. But the tornado left houses untouched here and there, immediately adjacent to houses which were flattened. Oh, yeah, isn't that always the way? Or you know how a fire will destroy an entire row of houses but leave the trees undamaged or something like that. You know, or a quote unquote atomic nuclear blast will destroy massive buildings like this one up here, for example, and completely obliterate a couple of cities. But the roads and sidewalks are totally fine. I guess that's why they tell you to lay down in a ditch if the big one's going to go boom, or if there's a tornado or a cyclone, for that matter. The CPR, or Canadian Pacific Railroad, roundhouse was stripped to the rafters, and boxcars were pulled from the tracks and hurled into the air. That does not sound excellent. Of course, they got to get rid of the old world steam locomotive tech roundhouses that have those cool railroad turntables. They got to get rid of those. Calgary got rid of its as well, you know, because they got to bring in that quote unquote fossil fuels that you get from dead dinosaurs, apparently. And you got to switch your steam power or any other kind of power for that matter to petroleum based. Such damage was especially appalling to see as well as experience, since Regina had been built on an entirely featureless plain lacking any trees or vegetation other than natural wild prairie grass, and without any hills or rivers apart from the tiny spring runoff Wascana Creek, which only flowed in early spring. They built the town around it by making a lake around it. So spring's still there? Is it still doing its thing? I wonder. Cyclone claimed 28 lives and the worst in Canadian history in terms of deaths. It also rendered 2,500 people, you mean, temporarily homeless. It caused $1.2 million in property damage. It took the city 2 years to repair the damage and 10 years to pay off its storm debt. What in the hell is a storm debt? I guess a loan they had to get from either the province or the from Ottawa, from the federal government, maybe, to pay for the damages. I mean, back then, 1.2 million was nothing to sneeze at. Before the city forced those rendered homeless by the disaster to pay for the nightly use of cots set up in schools and city parks. It also required homeowners to pay for the removal of rubble from their homes. What? Really? You want us to get rid of that? You better pay up. You better bone up. Wow. Debris was cleaned up quickly. Storm damaged the Metropolitan Methodist Church, the Knox Presbyterian Church, the First Methodist, the library, the YWCA and YMCA, numerous other downtown buildings. The warehouse district destroyed many of the storage buildings. I wonder what they were storing. Get damaged, I wonder. Damage from the tornado is estimated to be F4 on the Fujita scale, not fajita. Man, they really like to drive home how many were killed and injured and homeless. Like, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so there you go. That's where I thought it was 30 grand. 30,213 people. 500 buildings destroyed or damaged. Property damage, 1.2. So yeah, bad news, man. Bad news. Oh, for sure there, bud. For sure, Kathy. You got a point. The banks were fine. City, the customs office and all that. The federal buildings are fine. It's the churches and the beautiful anything with a spire or a dome. Those are the ones that because so you get some Weisenheimer. It's like, hey, excuse me there, but how come our city hall's got to have like a dome on it there, eh? And they're like, shut up, stop asking questions. Jeez, just wandering. Oof. You know, shut up or we'll throw you in the mental hospital. Can't have you asking too many questions, eh? Anyway, where were we at here with the photographs? We looked at we'll just jump it up. Well, it's fine. If we look at it again, it's not going to hurt nobody, I don't think. 13 of you watching, by the way. Go ahead and give a guy a like if you haven't already. It just kind of helps push me out in the algorithm a little bit. Kind of on a little bit of a downward dip right now for some reason, even though I've actually been seeing a lot of new folks coming by and shooting in and joining me here on the channel, subscribing and watching and commenting. So thank you very much. Really appreciate that. We looked at the tent and tarp building, the tarp, tent, and horse blanket superstore. Oh yeah, in the church. Some of these you'll have to excuse again the size. This is just the same church from another angle. With its octagonal tower, big huge arches here, and just completely decimated. You could see the some of the damaged adornments that formerly lived on this lovely building. This guy looks pretty bummed, man. I mean, I feel you, buddy. These pillars and everything, just the damage, And again, who's to say, maybe this one would have been spared, but, bozos come in here and I don't know. It could be anything. Like I said, it could be something as mundane and boring as run-of-the-mill insurance fraud, all the way up to, hey, this building's got 3 basements, and we've got to, put some plumbing down underneath here, and we're not going to be able to explain it away. So let's just jump on this whole cyclone thing. We got to move quick, man, because this thing's over in like 20 minutes, right? I mean, you don't have to completely take it down like on that terrible day in September of 2001. All you got to do is damage it enough so they say, oh, now we got to take it down, I mean, even a big behemoth like this, beautiful, but it's effed up. They're going to say, oh, that's structurally it's not sound, or maybe at the very least, well, the roof's got to come off, and then they put one of those crappy modern flat roofs on it, and that eventually ends up causing water damage because it holds water up there all the time, never fails, and then eventually it gets condemned. You know what I'm saying? So either way, its fate is sealed, I think. Oh yeah, yeah, we've all seen that list. It's ridiculous. Sneezing too much, in you go. I got a hangnail, in you go. Right? It's ridiculous. Team Heat. How's she going there, eh, bot? Good to see you. Thank you very much. Howie's here. That's right, Howie Harris. Good to see you. Good to see you. Thanks for shooting in, joining a guy here. Once again, thanks to all of you for joining me here. New West Reset Live episode. What are we at here? 34. $7:15 p.m. local time, Mountain Time here in Calgary. Still not bad, like 15 Celsius. It's okay-ish. About the low 60s Fahrenheit. Not bad for, kind of the end of the first week in October. I mean, it's Canada after all. I mean, it's, sometimes we get snow already by now. So look at this. I'm not sure what those are up there, but this, it's these beautiful embellishments that seemingly to somebody way down here barely be noticeable and seemingly have no purpose. But I mean, who knows what purpose these things served up there? And it's just these gorgeous old buildings, you know. I mean, the house, that means terrible. People live there. Nobody lived here. But I mean, that's just the courthouse. But you know, this is where folks lived, and that's kind of a shame. I mean, it's all of it. It's a shame, but it's just terrible. But again, you can see how well now we got to level this whole block. Well, that one we might be able to say nope. She's got to go. The same two of those buildings downtown. This is just a view from across the street from that Victoria Park, because this, I believe, is Victoria Street. By the way, if you're from Regina, shout out in the box. Let me know. Am I see? Oh, I don't know if, okay. I was going to say, am I seeing a horse-drawn trolley? But I think that might be some other kind of, I mean, it's being pulled by horse, but I don't think it's a street car. It could be, because maybe the power's out. So that's I don't know. I mean, I would imagine the power would have been out for a couple of days. So it could be horses pulling a streetcar, but why would you have a streetcar? Maybe it's a funny looking thing. It's in the middle of the road. I don't know. Looks like a shed or I don't know. What does that look like? Very odd. So there's that church again. You can see they've got a nice little cupola with a nice little conical dome on it too. That's spared, but this massive tower somehow gets destroyed. Gets greater surface area. The old world wind catcher caught too much wind, maybe. Ugh, just completely obliterated. This is the YMCA. Beautiful arched windows, and I'm guessing, again, this used to be a window and they just put a door there, but either way, lovely arched building, or arched window building, and gone. This thing across the street. I guess, if the power went out in, 1912, perhaps it would not have been as big of a deal to folks back then. Hell, I remember the Montreal ice storm in the 90s. What was it, 95 or 96 or something like that? Power was out for weeks, in some cases a month, I think, in parts of Quebec. And where my grandparents' little farm, where my grandparents were on the South Shore, south of Montreal, like a 45-minute drive south of Montreal, they didn't have power on their little farm for like 2 weeks. And I think after the first day when there was no power, my uncle drove out there to check on them, and they were fine. Granddad was out there shoveling the driveway, and Grandmom had stuff going on the stove because she has the old wood-burning stove in the kitchen. She was getting a big tubs of water to keep water heated, and they were fine with it because they were like, yeah, we kind of grew up when there wasn't any electricity, so it's fine. My uncle was like, oh, yeah, no, that's pretty cool. All right. Now you can see here what I'm sort of talking about, right? Like all this destruction, and I mean, this is a perfect excuse because I mean, if I was this guy or this guy or this guy, I'd be like, say, bub, can you explain to me what in Sam hell is going on here? Oh, that's the basement, bub. Really? Then why is there literally grass growing from under in there? Oh, it's a root cellar. Shut up. Shut up, buddy. It ain't no root cellar, eh? Yeah, sure it is. That's why you had to build a shack so you could get access to down there. it's so, I mean, see, it would be like, well, this one came down. We better take this one down too. But why? It wasn't. No, it's got some damage right here on the side. It's because they can't explain away this kind of BS here. So instead, whoopsie doopsie, got some damage. What's that big smokestack looking thing used for? I mean, you got a chimney, so what's this? No, we got to take it down. Sorry. Can't talk right now. This is a restricted, closed construction area. You see, we got sandbags here. It's an emergency now. Get out now. Get. I don't know, man. You gotta like it when they folks still get dressed up just to go and observe the horrific damage. I mean, this is heartbreaking. They even had to post a copper there to keep people from, I don't know, I guess going through and like, trying to grab anything that's of value, maybe. I mean, the whole freaking city was practically destroyed. I mean, that's usually the story we hear, right? Is they post National Guard, whoops, sorry, or cops, or whatever, because they're worried about people looting. Looting what? Looting what? The place has been flattened. Yeah, because this criminal element here of these lovely ladies with their parasols and their hats, and this gentleman with his hat. Yeah, that's what they're planning on doing. See, they got dressed up to come rooting through here to find some buried valuable treasures. And then they spotted the cop and foiled. Don't worry about these sketchy looking buggers over here. No. They're fine. You can let them loiter around. And these people got to move along. Sorry, I'm making up stories here. A nice little narrative going in my head. Anyway, you just see how this is, I believe, Victoria Street, and again Victoria Park here. You could just see the destruction. And again, I'm not disputing the fact that there was a massive cyclone, tornado, whatever you want to call it, in Regina, Saskatchewan in 1912. But it certainly could have been an opportunity to get rid of buildings that it was becoming harder and harder for them to explain away or to maintain, because they didn't know how to maintain some of the old world systems within the buildings, whether it was, I don't know, steam, heat exchange, the air exchange systems with the air catchers or the wind catchers, the old fireplaces. Like, I don't know. I mean, by their own narrative, once you get sort of west of Winnipeg, Manitoba here in Canada, like once you get into Regina, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, I mean, it wasn't developed as early as in the East. Same as the American narrative, right? The push westward and manifest destiny and all that. You guys had your Lewis and Clark, and we had our David Thompson up here. 1803, 1805, 1807, all those trips out to see what was going on out here. So, late to the party out here in the prairies. So, I mean, 1850, by their own story, it wouldn't have done the trick if there was some kind of big reset in and around 1850. And who's to say there wasn't one here at that time? But you get a natural disaster, again, whether it's a flood or an earthquake or whatever. In this case, a cyclone tears through your city. Now you can, okay, well, these a couple of these buildings here were real troublesome to us. So, we can just finish the job, have the guys that are in our pocket that are so-called building inspectors or whatever come in and, deem the place a public hazard, condemn the place, and then we knock it down. Stuff that we can sort of explain away, we can fix them up and keep them, right? I don't know. That's at least that's how I look at it anyway. So where are we at here? Wow, I shot past only almost an hour and a half going already. You know what? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, they started out in, of course, they started in Louisville. It's going to be named after Louisville, Louis. The French version of Louis is Louis. But you can also pronounce Louis as Louis and Louis is Louis and spell it that way, Louis. You know. But yeah, they started up there and up here, David Thompson. Well, he was, out in Ontario, and he kind of started from about roughly Manitoba-ish and made his way westward. Lewis and Clark trying to get to the Pacific, and David Thompson doing the same thing, for the fur trade routes and to make friends with the indigenous wild Indians and so on and so forth. And then send in the cowboys and the railroads to kill all the buffalo, and then send them off to the reserves. Oops, sorry. I know we said we wanted to be friends, but we lied. Not that whole narrative too, right? So I think what a guy's going to do here with you right now is share the midweek for this coming Wednesday. Once again, I want to thank everybody for joining me here. Currently, I think there's 14 of you watching right now. Thank you very much. Kicking off your weekend with Frankie, your New West Reset. It's nice. It's nice. I like it. Thank you. Thank you very much. On this Friday. What's coming up here for midweek? Oh, yes. Yes. This was actually a little, if you're familiar with my other show that I do with Chris at Old World Exploration, we do a once a month show called the Knucklehead Show. And if you watch the show, you're familiar with the show. You probably would have seen little bits of, wow, can you hear that, by the way? It's nice enough a guy still got his window open, right? And some guy's just laying into his horn up there. Sheesh, just like guy's giving her. He's just giving her there, bud. It's amateur hour over here on the show, by the way, because I forgot to bookmark the video so that I could share it with you and give you a sneak peek of what's coming up this coming Wednesday. So now that's why you're hearing the mouse feverishly and frantically clicking. So I can get to the darn thing. Sorry about that. But anyway, yeah, I was saying this was a little clip from that show that we did about, earlier in this show, we talked about Canadian Pacific Railroad and the railroad in general here in Canada. And again, mirroring or rubber stamped repeating the narrative down in the US, right? That the railroad united the nation and all that. Same thing up here. And this was a little video segment that I shared on that show in regards to the railroad hotels that were built. That's where basically, for lack of a better term, castles in the Rocky Mountains, for lack of a better term. And this is one of those old mountain castle hotels. And this is some video footage from the 1920s. But before that, holy, what's going on over here? Old World, hamster wheel cranes. Super chat, thank you. Toot toot on aboard the loony train. Oh man, thank you. That's very nice. It's very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Appreciate that. This one's for you, my friend.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Very generous. Super chat.
Thank you. Very, very kind of you. Hello, my Sherry and Nolani. Old World, Florida. Longo missing 2 nights in a row. What's going on? What's going on? Oh, no. Well, okay, I see. Well, if you're joining me from here from there, welcome. Thank you. Very kind. Much obliged. There's that old prospector. Much obliged. Eesh. All right. Anyway. Let's get to it. So it's just a couple minutes, 3 minutes actually. And we'll come back, have a little bit more of a chit chat, and I'll go from there. All right. Be back in 2 minutes and 55 seconds. All right. That's enough of that. Thank you very much. We're back. That was the Banff Springs Hotel footage from the 20s. And that's basically a castle right in the middle of the mountains, supposedly built by the railroad. Okay, sure. Thought they're busy laying track, but no, that's fine. Hello. I'm going to say your name super fancy because I'm like that. Dumas Mofukar. Welcome. So if you're just joining me, Frankie here, New West Reset, and this is New West Reset Live, episode 34 here today on Friday, October the 6th, just after 7:30 p.m. local time. That's mountain time here in Calgary, Alberta. So thanks for joining me. Thanks for shooting in. Take time out of your weekend kickoff to join little old me out here. It's Friday. Yay! Been looking at the terrible tornado, the Regina Cyclone of 1912, the most destructive tornado in Canadian history. Dozens killed, hundreds injured and thousands left without a home. And huge swaths or swathes, however you say that. I've always said swaths. The city just destroyed, buildings completely annihilated or destroyed beyond repair. And from some of the photos that we looked at earlier in the stream, these were some beautiful buildings. Some buildings, withstood and still stand today. But a lot of that old world stuff, the beautifully decorated stuff. I mean, these are, again, it doesn't have to be any sort of crazy timeline shift alteration type reset for a little thing like a localized thing like a cyclone or a flood or an earthquake, right? It could just be that, now all these buildings, all those fancy gargoyles and statues and whatever, these reliefs or carvings or appliques that they've put on all these buildings. It's all unsafe now. It can fall on people's heads when they're walking by doing their shopping downtown. They take all that off. They take off all the old tech, the old antennas, what they're calling antennas, what we refer to as antiquitech, what they call, I don't know, flagpoles, lightning poles. They take all that off. It was damaged. It's become a hazard. So the building might be fine, but they just strip it down and they start the process of brutalizing or making these old buildings ugly. They modernize the buildings, but they make them much less visually appealing. And I would also argue they start doing so. These buildings, after their facelift, start giving off negative vibes as opposed to positive energy. By the way, buddy, thank you. Thanks, Mi'kmaq, for sharing the link. Appreciate that there, bud. Thank you, eh? I was thinking of doing a show, actually, a live stream, an episode of the show here on the Mi'kmaq, what people call the Mi'kmaq, concentrated mostly in the east, sort of northeastern U.S. and then eastern Canada, Nova Scotia and Quebec, and then up in like in Maine and stuff too in the U.S. Because when you think of quote unquote American Indians, right, Indigenous First Nations here in Canada, or American Indians in the U.S., right? It's the movies, right? The Hollywood is twisted our brains. So the first thing you think of is some shirtless guy with a buckskin, what do they call that? Like a tunic or something, feather in his hair on a horse, running down buffalo. And I guess in some cases, perhaps that could have been the case in, here in the prairies where there were buffalo or bison. But I mean, that's just a complete sort of a broad brushstroke, right? And I think the quote unquote nomadic nations or tribes of Indigenous folks following buffalo across the prairies is a fairly recent narrative, even in their history. A couple of 300, 400, 500 years maybe. Prior to that, we're seeing evidence all over the southern prairies, and definitely in Ontario and Quebec and in the Maritimes and stuff, like mounds, like the mounds that you see in Ohio and stuff, and in the Mississippi Valley. There's mounds in Ontario. There's mounds in Manitoba. There's potentially mounds in southern Saskatchewan that they're finding now. Bernie found some very suspicious earthworks down in southern Alberta here, down in around Medicine Hat this past summer. And then when you look at what we call, thank you, yes, buckskin loincloth, thank you. And a quiver of arrows and a bow and all that, right? Painted face and the whole bit, right? But when you look at what we call the Mi'kmaq, come on, man. This ain't no Clint Eastwood movie or John Wayne flick. You look at their customs, their art, and their style of dress, and the fact that they lived in lodges and like actual structures, not in quote unquote teepees. I mean, there were some sort of more temporary structures built like that, but was along where they would have these very sophisticated fishing systems set up to trap and catch fish, and but their villages and their towns and stuff had permanent structures. But along where these sophisticated fisheries, for lack of a better term, were along the banks or along the shorelines of the ocean and so on, they could erect these temporary structures just for shelter while they're out there harvesting from the ocean or the rivers and so on, right? So I thought about doing a live stream, actually, focusing on just the quote-unquote Micmac. So, let me know if you think that's cool or not. I don't know. You know me, I'm Canadian, right, through and through. So I don't want to offend anybody, right? God forbid we offend somebody up here and somebody, what's the term all the kids are saying now, butthurt or whatever. But I find it fascinating just on the surface level of just comparing the official narrative of the Indians with the feathers and on the horseback, tearing through and causing havoc and raiding the towns or raiding the wagon trains and all this crazy malarkey. Then you look and you're like, well, hold on a second here. What about the sophisticated and highly technical fish harvesting systems they had set up, and the really extensive culture and the artwork and the language, the written language, which is pretty rare by the quote unquote again the American Indian narrative, right? We're always taught in school that it was a oral tradition with the songs and stories, and learning to speak the language was all passed down orally. But then, again, boop, up popped the Mi'kmaq, and it's a written language. Very sort of hieroglyphic looking. Anyway, let me know in the chat if you'd be interested in having a look at the sophistication of yeah, exactly. See, yeah, that whole narrative, right, with the buckskin outfit and the feather and again, I know there's different nations and different customs and different styles of dress going back, anywhere from about roughly 100 years ago back to about, where you're seeing sketches from the early pioneers and fur traders from the 16 and 1700s, and looking at photographs from the 19th century and early 20th century. Of course, different nations and different families, tribes of different families assembled together, different confederations of nations, of different peoples, depending where they were geographically, would have different customs and outfits and so on. But I mean, that we're just basically, whenever you see quote unquote Hollywood or television or even read comic books or stories, it's always that sort of, loincloth, feather, Tonto kind of look. And that is not the case. I'm going to, by the way, Old World Mi'kmaq, I'm going to take that as your seal of approval that I can go ahead, being a member of the nation yourself, that I can go ahead and cover that. Maybe a guy will do that on next Friday. Do the Old World Mi'kmaq. But they buck the narrative. You look at the Mi'kmaq and you're like, wait a second. I'm not seeing any feathers. I ain't seen a horse unless the guy's riding it or is pulling his wagon. I don't really see teepees. I see lodges and structures, and they're not eating bannock and pemmican. I mean, they're harvesting fish, and they've they're farming, like what the hell's going on here? Indians farming? No. They're supposed to be running around getting to buffalo and scalping the white man, the paleface, and all that BS, right? So yeah, they definitely buck the narrative, and I find it fascinating. But yeah, obviously there's going to be differences. There were some Indigenous First Nations peoples that did use a lot of feather adornments and decorations in their clothing, for ceremonial purposes or for different, things like, what we would consider like a wedding, for example, or, some kind of rite of passage, and there's some kind of ceremonial thing that goes along with that. They're gonna, a guy's gonna put on he's gonna dress to the nines. Now he wants to look good for the ladies when he's doing his rite of passage or what have you. So yeah, there's going to be beads, feathers, and all that. Sure. Some nations, but not all. And it's going to be different. I mean, so-and-so's beaded headdress from Mi'kmaq Nation is going to be different than here in the prairies or out on the West Coast. May still use intricate weaving techniques and beads for adornment, but it's going to be completely different iconography and designs because they're influenced, these different nations, depending on where they were based out of, are influenced by their sort of surroundings, right? So there's a lot of trees. Perhaps their artwork would reflect that in terms of maybe the colors used, and the designs may be really tall and narrow, like trees look, especially in the mountains where it's mostly pine trees, right? You don't get a lot of leafy coniferous. Is that what that is? Leafy trees, right? You get a lot of pine trees. But then in the plains, yes, you do have bison iconography in the artwork. Yeah, well, corn. Yeah, there's corn in southern Alberta, corn a little bit in Saskatchewan and Manitoba. Corn doesn't grow as well up here. Well, most stuff doesn't grow as well up here. Shorter growing season, as a lot of you are aware, up here in Canada. And corn, for some reason, has a tough go of it. I mean, not the recent weirdo gene spliced crappy corn, but old school corn. It's not like in I don't know, what is it? I can't remember what state is supposed to be famous for corn. I don't know, Kansas, or is it, what is it? Can't remember now. But yeah. But I mean, there's evidence of on Nova Scotia of the Mi'kmaq going back, I think it's something like 10 or 15,000 years by the official timeline. So, I mean, these aren't, just roaming nomadic tribes that follow the migrating animals. They farmed and fished. They supplemented their diet with agriculture and wild game. Of course, who wouldn't? Deer, moose, elk, delicious. Pheasant and partridge and grouse, delicious. Duck, delicious. So why wouldn't a nation that has access to all the waterways in the eastern part of the country not take advantage of it, right? Okay, there you go. Yeah, 13,500 officially, but yeah, 20,000. Yeah, man. I mean, why not? I mean, it used to be Clovis first down in the US up until they went, whoops, okay, there's actually stuff older because it's under, because they do their dating by strata, layers of strata or whatever, right? However reliable that may be, as some of us know, with many of the resets being mud flood. But that being said, just by going by their own official story, well, okay, they thought, well, it couldn't be any older than this, Clovis. That's it. Clovis was here first, and then whoopsie, no, there's older now. So yeah, what they were saying was 10 or 12 was probably 20 or even 25. I mean, again, access to the waterways, And, you're on the East Coast. You're right there, man. I mean, Newfoundland's sticking right out into the Atlantic. It's not far from Greenland, which isn't far from Iceland and Europe. And if you're coming from the other direction, what we now call like sort of Siberia, and you're coming northerly across to what's now Alaska and down through some of the waterways that go through the Yukon, be pretty easy to get here if you are a maritime archaic culture, right? All right. Okay, I got your seal of approval. Excellent. All right, so we'll do that next week. We'll do we'll kind of do we won't go too much of a deep dive because, guys, again, I'm no expert, but I like to. It's almost like the game that John Levi plays, where he shows a building and says, guess where this is, and everyone's like, Dusseldorf or whatever, and he's like, no, it's somewhere in Wisconsin or whatever, and everybody's mind's blown. It's kind of the same thing. You show a photo from Victorian or Edwardian era photo of somebody from the Mi'kmaq Nation and say, what country is this from? And nobody would guess Canada. Nobody. They'd be like, Mongolia? No. Uzbekistan? No. Tibet? No. You'll see. It's mind blowing. So we're creeping up on the 2-hour mark here. Guys, gone a little over time. Sorry about that. Just enjoy chatting with everybody in the box there so much that the guy just goes on these verbal wanderings, these verbal walkabouts. Yeah, Christopher Columbus. Sure, of course. Yeah, exactly. Well, you still got to have that Columbus Day, though. That's fine. Let him have the Columbus Day. Who cares? Whatever. I mean, it's all in the books anyways. You can even just go and read their official books, and it's like, oh, actually, well, you're talking about actually what we call America. It's not so much 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. So I think I'm getting ready to wind this down. Thank you very much once again, everybody, for taking time out of the kickoff to your weekend here, your Friday, for joining a guy here, New West Reset, for another live one, episode 34, talking about the Regina Cyclone reset of 1912, a terrible tornado, very destructive, and a perfect opportunity for the powers who should not be to jump on it and definitely take advantage of it on whatever means they deemed that they could get away with, especially if, they're in the city council, or if they got the Johnny Law in their pocket, or they're a member of our favorite group we like to make fun of around here, the fellow travelers, the Brotherhood, the Masons that can't mason a stone if they tried. Because they're in every little nowhere backwater town all over the place here. So they could jump on that whole thing too. Next thing you know, it's a free-for-all. It's like Black Friday at the Best Buy or whatever. So I think that's going to seal the deal here tonight for old Frankie. New West Reset. Once again, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it as always. And again, a reminder, if you haven't, maybe give a guy one of these, or one of these. That's fine. It's fine. I'm not going to toss and turn. If you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. And, all the other YouTube stuffs. Most importantly, if you're watching this after the fact, number one, thanks. Appreciate that. Number two, let me know what you think down in the comments below there. If you could just give me the old beep boop bop on the keyboard. Say hello. And don't forget, as always, this Sunday coming up, Boots on the Ground video. Wednesday's your midweek, which we already had a sneak peek at. The Castle Mountain Hotels. And then we will see you next week for another live one. So there you go. Thank you very much. And until the next one, take care out there and have yourselves a good one. All right. Cheers, everybody. Thanks.